3 counties, 24 cities, working together, accomplishing more than any of us could alone. Whether your roots run generations deep, or you recently moved to Greater Portland, you are a part of Metro, the nation's only regional government elected by the people. Planning for the future, preserving what we love. Let's keep our region thriving for decades to come.
Hi, I'm Justin Dunlap, and I'm the department head stagehand electrician at the Arlene Schnitzer Concert Hall. Safety is a big part of my job. From electrical, making sure that I stay up to date on the NFPA codes and regulations, to rigging, where we make sure that everything is safely suspended overhead, to egress, ensuring that our audiences, performers, and technicians have the safest possible route in case of emergency. I'm out here at the Arlene Schnitzer Concert Hall, and you're in the Metro Regional Center. Please note that we're on the 3rd floor of the building. In the event of a fire or fire alarm, please exit through the door in the northeast corner of the room. Go down the steps to the 2nd floor and exit through the main entrance by the reception desk. We will meet in the courtyard outside that entrance. In the event of a medical or fire emergency, please call 911 and notify the security agent at the front desk. The nearest defibrillator is mounted on the steps leading from the reception desk down to Grand Avenue.
Thank you. I will now call to order the Metro Council meeting for November 20th, 2025. I will now ask our clerk, Georgia Langer, to call the roll for attendance.
Councilor Nolan.
Hello there. I'm here.
Good morning. Councilor Gonzalez.
Present. Good morning.
Councilor Lewis.
Present.
Councilor Wong.
Present.
Councilor Rosenthal.
Present.
Council President Peterson is excused today, and Deputy Council President Simpson.
Present. Thank you, Georgia. Before we begin today's agenda items, I'd like to acknowledge that today is Transgender Day of Remembrance, and Councilor Lewis has some remarks to share in recognition.
Thank you so much, Deputy Council President Simpson. Again, my name is Christine Lewis. I use pronouns like she and her, and I represent the constituents of District 2 on Metro Council. And today, Metro will join many around the world in observing Transgender Day of Remembrance, which happens each November 20th. The roots of Transgender Day of Remembrance began in 1998 when Gwendolyn Ann Smith, an activist and transgender woman living in Boston, heard of the murder of Rita Hester, a Black trans woman living in the Alliston neighborhood. When Gwendolyn shared the news with her friends, she was surprised that they had not heard of the death of another Black trans woman just a few miles away, Chanel Piggott, in 1995. Chanel's killer received a 2-year sentence. These were part of a wave of violence against the LGBTQ+ community in Massachusetts at the time that also included the murder of Debbie Forte, and Monique Thomas. Gwendolyn says, "I saw a community that seemed to be forgetting those who were taken away from us before their time, and in forgetting, we were allowing it to continue." A week later, Gwendolyn started the Remembering Our Dead project, a web memorial to those who've been killed by anti-transgender violence. The next year, in 1999, Boston and San Francisco held the first Transgender Day of Remembrance, where the community read a list of 30 names of people they knew who had been killed. What began as a personal project has grown into an international observance that spans continents from Romania to Thailand, Scotland to Malaysia, and all across America, even in places like Portage, Indiana, and Mobile, Alabama, and here today in Oregon. The true number of people killed by anti-transgender violence is unknowable. In 2019, the National Transgender Discrimination Survey found that 63% of those surveyed had experienced a major act of discrimination. Categories included job loss, eviction, loss of relationships with immediate family, bullying so severe that students drop out of school, homelessness due to their identity, physical assault, and sexual assault. A quarter of those surveyed reported catastrophic levels of discrimination, at least 3 of those categories above. In the words of the report, discrimination was pervasive throughout the entire sample, yet combination of anti-transgender bias and persistent structural racism was especially devastating. People of color in general fare worse than white participants across the board, with African American transgender respondents faring worse than all others in many areas examined. But statistics are flattening. Each of the 6,450 people they surveyed has a name, has friends, and has the universal human desire for a life that is safe and dignified. This year's memorial on transremembrance.org has names, faces, and stories of 59 people who were lost, including 2 Oregonians. Artie Cassidy Beowulf Gibson was 23. Artie had recently moved to Portland with his fiancée in search of a safer political environment for trans people. They used both he and they pronouns. Charlotte Fosgate was just 17. A brilliant and creative gamer and programmer, Charlotte was an active member of the game modding community, and even at her young age, she contributed to a vibrant community of gamers and modders, selflessly offering help and working with others to create fun experiences that everyone could enjoy. She was a beloved daughter, an amazing friend, and loved art and music. And one friend wrote that, "I feel so privileged that I got to work with Charlotte and be a recipient of her kindness." Here at Metro, we observe other sorrowful days, including the National Day of Remembrance for Indian Boarding Schools and Indigenous Peoples Day. We observe months dedicated in celebration and bearing witness to violent and shameful legacies such as Black History Month, Latino Heritage Month, and Pride Month. Normally for these observances, Metro staff and community with lived experiences present and share with us. Those are among the most meaningful discussions we have in this chamber. I desperately wish that we were in a time where we knew it was safe for Metro staff who are trans to share their identities and their experience publicly. It's a damning indictment that they cannot. It shows the depth of need for this day to remember and honor those lost, and it's a call for us to fight urgently, to protect all trans members of our community, to do all we can to create a society where this brutal violence is a shameful relic of the past. One day is not enough. This work must happen every day. And to paraphrase our COO Madrigal, we are all responsible for creating a world where trans people feel safe and welcome. Here are some concrete steps. Use people's correct pronouns and share your own. Learn about trans history here and across the globe, about etiquette and best practices, about your own understanding of gender. Those of us in leadership, we must know and enforce Metro's gender inclusion policy. Metro has long been a leader in this. We have a very strong policy to support staff, but policies are only as strong as the backing behind it. To all Metro staff, I ask that you not only speak up when you see harm, but also support and stand in solidarity with your colleagues, individually and through the work of the Pride ERG. And finally, I hope everyone in the region will join council in support of our transgender community and the organizations that advocate for them. To all Metro staff and everyone in our region who is transgender or non-binary or gender non-conforming, we as a council see you, we support you, we stand with you. Despite the threats you face, you show up every day to serve the region as your authentic selves with courage in a world that often does everything it can to erase you. Together, we are not only shaping the present, but also our collective future, a future where trans people are treated with dignity, humanity, and respect that all people deserve. These are just words, and they're so far from enough. So I'd like us to all take a moment of silence to reflect on all those lost, those in Oregon, those in our country, those around the globe, and honor the very real fear that so many are experiencing every day, and to ground ourselves so that we might struggle together for a better world. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lewis. I will now open public communications on non-agenda items. Georgia, will you please describe to the audience our procedures that we will use for public communications?
If you are testifying in person, please sign up by filling out a blue card in the back of the room and bringing it up to me. If you are testifying on Zoom or by phone, please sign up by using the raise hand function in the reactions or more menus, or by dialing *9. When it is your turn to testify, I'll call your name or phone number. For those on Zoom, click accept to be promoted to a panelist. Your Zoom window will close briefly before you rejoin as a panelist. You can turn on your camera if you'd like. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes and the timer begins when you begin speaking. If you are testifying in person, there are timers located at your testimony table, on the wall, and on the digital screen. Please state your name for the record before testifying. You do not need to give your physical address. And Deputy Council President Simpson, we do have one person who signed up in advance to testify on non-agenda items, and that is Art Llewellyn. If you'd like to come up to the front, your time will begin when you begin speaking.
Morning, Council. Morning.
Morning.
If you just let me finish, if I reach the 3-minute point, I'll wrap it up. I think Council should know that sometimes I come in to speak before and critically and sometimes supportive. So I'm not necessarily always opposed to various projects. A specific project I'm going to relates to these 3 handouts that I have passed before you. They are in regard to the Rose Quarter I-5 so-called improvement. Let's hope we get an improvement out of it. I don't see it. I see it as putting the public in harm's way, making traffic hazards worse. And that's inexcusable. I'm going to stand up here and drag you over the fire in order to get these concerns addressed. The first part of the salvageable component of the project was submitted a few years back. It was this idea of having the entrance southbound from Weidler. And that would actually reduce the Surface Street bottleneck, which I think it should be obvious. You should know that. But didn't go anywhere, and it wasn't even my idea, but I liked it and went with it. Then came this drawing here from ODOT, which is a southbound exit that formed a loop that rose over the I-5 on that side, south, and re-entered onto Weidler, so that part of the traffic would be out, also reducing the bottleneck of the Surface Street, making pedestrian crossings of those crosswalks safer. So what I get is this image here, a compilation of these 2 items, the new exits, with a little further detail, better detail, more complete than what I expect from ODOT. We all should expect the most detailed. By their route or proposal here in drawing, I can't tell if it's even possible or if ODOT is even serious. They just come up with this idea and they, oh, well, we don't need to finish the details. And a little bicycle arrangement. Those are the main things I want to just present before you. And I also want to talk about my other projects that I have taken to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And I was given an interview and informed that my next steps were the Attorney General and the Secretary of State. So I've done that as well and gotten responses. And I'm not surprised that Chris Strickler has now decided to resign. Well, I'm down towards the end of my 3-minute period. This is the important part that we'll get the Rose Quarter right.
Mr. Llewellyn,
Okay?
your time has come to an end.
Right.
Thank you so much.
You sure you want to hear me to speak a little more?
No, sir.
I could go on.
We got business to keep conducting.
All right.
Have a great day.
Thank you, Art. Deputy Council President Simpson, I do not see anyone else who signed up to testify on non-agenda items today.
All right, I will now close public testimony and move us into our consent agenda. Today, we have 3 items on today's consent agenda. Consideration of the October 30th, 2025 council meeting minutes. Consideration of the November 4th, 2025 council meeting minutes. Resolution number 25-5542 for the purpose of confirming reappointments to the Metro Committee on Racial Equity. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. It's been moved by Councilor Lewis and seconded by Councilor Rosenthal. All in favor say aye.
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 Yes.
All opposed say nay. The motion passes. All right, moving us into presentations. With this presentation on the Parks and Nature and Natural Areas Oversight Committee annual reports. With the support of the voters of the region, Metro has delivered on promises to protect and connect special places in the region through protecting almost 20,000 acres and welcoming the public to our developed sites. The Parks and Nature Annual Report presented by the department each year to Metro Council is an opportunity to continue to report back to the region on how we've done. Throughout the year, we as a council have received updates and provided direction about specific parks and nature programs and projects throughout the year. Today is an opportunity for us to take a step back and zoom out to look at all the work we've accomplished in the last year with the community and partners through June 2025. Come on, John. Thanks for being here, John. Director John Blasher, and I also want to thank all the Parks and Nature staff partners whose work is being showcased today. Without you, none of this work would be possible. With John today are the co-chairs of the Natural Areas Oversight Committee, co-chairs Carrie Waters. Hey, Carrie, good to see you. And Aaron Upton. Is Aaron?
Aaron should
In the
be
video.
online virtually.
Okay, there we go. To present the committee's annual report. Thank you to the co-chairs for being here today, and thank you to the members of the Natural Areas and Capital Programs Performance Oversight Committee. I also appreciate my fellow counselor liaisons to the Oversight Committee, Councilors Nolan and Rosenthal. This committee provides an invaluable service to the public. It has ensured taxpayer funds are spent efficiently, and are in alignment with the goals of the 2019 Parks and Nature Bond, including 3 bond critical criteria of racial equity, climate resilience, and community engagement. Director Blasher, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Deputy Council President Simpson, Metro Councilors. I'm John Blasher, Director of Metro's Parks and Nature Department. I use he, him, his pronouns. Here today to give you a brief overview of how we've invested the money that voters have entrusted us during the 2024-25 fiscal year and share some of the stories of the work that's been done across Metro's close to 20,000 acres of parks, trails, natural areas, and historic cemeteries. The Parks and Nature team has worked hard last year to implement many ongoing projects and programs that protect clean water, restore fish and wildlife habitat, and provide opportunities for people to enjoy nature close to home. Our bond programs now are well-oiled, and we've seen improvements year over year, including fiscal year 24-25, and I'm happy to look forward to sharing those successes with you. Parks and Nature staff have also enjoyed hosting many of you counselors out to some of our nature parks over the last couple of months. And during those conversations, we did share with you some of the operation challenges that our department is facing following budget cuts that went into effect for this current fiscal year. As a reminder, we reduced our FTE by 17% and our M&S by 10%. As with other parks departments across the region and country, we're navigating a budget that has generally more capital dollars that outpace our operations funds, which come from our levy and general fund. So our staff grappled with some real challenges during this current busy summer, with fewer staff hours available across sites and services due to the budget cuts for this fiscal year. I want to send again a special appreciation to all of our operations and admin teams that worked really hard at those Metro destination sites to ensure that visitors still had a safe and welcoming experience under these challenging circumstances. So it's been a difficult 9 months for our department with lots of goodbyes and upheaval. And I really appreciate the dedication of our staff as they continue to deliver services and programs that benefit the region. I also want to thank you as a council for your leadership and direction to ensure that everything we do as a department is in service of Metro's priorities around racial equity, accessibility, and climate resilience. Parks and Nature continues to be a strength for Metro and something that's part of the region's DNA. It's part of the region that relies primarily on local and regional commitments and investments that we also saw a clear example of that continued support with the Portland's Parks Levy that recently passed, people standing up for parks and nature. And we know that people and communities in Greater Portland adore parks and nature, and so excited to share more of what we've accomplished in this past fiscal year. But before I dive into that, and knowing that one of our co-chairs has some time constraints, I have the pleasure of introducing our co-chairs for what we call the Bond Oversight Committee. And so I'd like to welcome Sitting here on my right is Carrie Waters, who serves as our co-chair of this committee, along with Aaron Upton. Carrie's a member of the Tlingit tribe, Raven Moiety, and Dog Salmon clan, and is a lifelong member of the Portland urban indigenous community. Early on, family and community members instilled a passion within her for the first foods and other cultural resources of Salmon Nation. She kicked off her career in policymaking with the elected City Commissioner Amanda Fritz, and has since advanced culturally grounded, climate-adjusted movements, building the Native American Youth and Family Center. Carrie championed contract equity at the Portland Bureau of Transportation and now administers the Sustainable Procurement Program with the City of Portland to leverage citywide purchasing power for the good of our people and environment. Aaron Upton serves as with Carrie, was the co-chair, as an environmental social scientist and landscape architect with a doctorate in Earth, Environment, and Society from Portland State University. She's passionate about understanding the human dimensions of complex environmental challenges. Aaron's curious about decision-making around water and land, climate change resilience, and sustainable futures in working landscapes. She's committed to applied interdisciplinary research and co-production of knowledge and elevating diverse community voices. With that, I'll invite Carrie and Aaron to share their perspective from the Bond Oversight Committee and their latest annual report. Carrie.
Thank you, Director Blasher, and good morning, councilors. For the record, my name is Carrie Waters. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm honored to serve as co-chair of the Natural Areas and Capital Performance Oversight Committee. So thank you for the opportunity to present this report to you today. On behalf of the committee, as co-chairs, Aaron and I would like to offer some remarks about the committee's work to date and some bond highlights and key takeaways. So our committee is made up of a diverse set of individuals with expertise in the areas of land acquisition, conservation, community engagement, working lands, finance, and have the perspectives necessary to ensure that accessibility and tribal sovereignty reflect and align with bond criteria, bond programs, goals, and criteria. So before we dive in, I would love to thank the counselors who have served as liaisons to our committee. That includes Rosenthal, Nolan, and Simpson for being supportive and engaged in our committee's discussions. We look forward to continuing to engage and discuss the progress, issues, and ideas that we're speaking with you about today. We also want to acknowledge the work and commitment of our fellow committee members whose collective voice we represent today. And finally, we want to thank Metro staff, of course, for their ongoing assistance in this reporting process and to the committee as a whole. So for today's report back, Aaron and I will be co-presenting. I will start with an overview of bond investments and activities to date, and Aaron will close us out with an overview of the bond criteria and performance measurement. So this report reflects our ongoing review of bond programs and discussions in our working groups through June 2025. We appreciate the opportunity every year to take a big picture look at what has been accomplished to date and to elevate specific findings from staff reporting on bond investments and activities completed through June 2025 in the specific areas that we focus on. And these focus areas, for the record, are land acquisition, community engagement, and finance. So we are at the midpoint of the life of this bond measure, which was passed by voters in 2019 and is expected to be largely completed by 2031. So it's our role to help review and highlight relevant information about bond implementation, investments, activities, and performance based on information provided by staff. The highlights that we are sharing with you today came from committee discussions around a detailed staff reporting document that we've been reviewing since the summer. This report is found on the committee's webpage and is a part of the meeting packet for today. We find that Metro continues to deliver on the pace and quality of bond investments in the 6 bond program areas. Here are some key highlights in this year's report. Bond investments are protecting and restoring priority habitat and future green space across the region. The Protect and Restore Land Program has completed 35 land acquisitions for 1,555 acres and 0.84 miles of trail right-of-way across 22 target areas, which includes 18 Protect and Restore land investments and 4 trail investments. These investments support work needed to return land to stable conditions and are funding significant capital restoration projects. All of these activities are conducted in alignment with the bond criteria and reflect community wisdom and insights on priorities for land acquisition and restoration. In this previous fiscal year, the team met its goals to complete 6 to 12 acquisitions and to spend over $7 million on land by completing 10 acquisitions for $8.6 million. This year also represented significant progress in advancing trail gap acquisitions. Additional highlights include purchasing land in 18 out of 24 target areas and 6 different priority regional trail corridors. This underlines how we're making investments across our region and acquiring land and trail rights, both where people live today and where growth may occur in the future. Bond investments are supporting local priorities in the region. So to date, the bond's local share, capital grants, trail grants, and large-scale community vision projects have awarded $90 million to over 70 priority parks, trails, and natural area projects across the region. These programs, which can only fund eligible projects that meet the bond requirements to advance racial equity, to strengthen the region's climate resilience, and to reflect feedback from meaningful community engagement, have awarded funds to a range of project types across the region, ranging from nature play to new culturally specific amenities, to investments in the regional trail system, to projects that update or improve the accessibility of existing parks, trails, and natural areas in communities across the region. Bond investments are making Metro-developed parks across the region more safe, welcoming, and inclusive. So the bond's Take Care of Metro Parks program has invested over $42 million to increase access opportunities and to improve maintenance at Metro's developed sites like Blue Lake Park and Oxbow Regional Park. We're pleased to see these projects being among the bucket of projects at Metro to advance Metro's public benefits program, including setting and meeting targets for workforce diversity and contract equity through participation by contractors certified through the statewide Certification Office for Business Inclusion and Diversity, which I'll refer to as COBID, and use of sustainable and carbon-friendly building materials and processes. The overall COBID participation rate is currently at 26%, and workforce tracking for the Blue Lake Park Curry Building project are exceeding the target set. In addition, the committee emphasizes and recommends the following themes for Metro's parks and nature bond work. The list includes items that we ask Metro to keep working on and things that we'll bookmark that we want to hear more from Metro about in the coming year. This includes the conservation of fish and wildlife habitat as an opportunity that benefits us now and for future generations. In acknowledgement that the 2019 bond measures include a relatively smaller amount of funding for land acquisition than previous natural area bond measures, the committee encourages Metro Council and staff to preserve and maximize the amount of funds dedicated towards this use. We appreciated the opportunity to learn more about how Metro's overall policy requirements for construction projects are shaping guidelines for bond-funded contracts at Metro's developed sites in terms of their contract and workforce equity and for the overall project sustainability. We encourage Metro to continue to maximize the impact of bond investments on contractors and workers alike. To do so, we believe it's also important to gather as much information underlying the COBID participation rate as possible, and we encourage Metro to explore strategies, tools, and software that would allow for a deeper analysis of COBID participation and contract equity performance as a whole for contractors, both primes and subcontractors alike on bond-funded projects. This is important as we anticipate more bond funds to be spent on larger construction projects with multiple contractors in upcoming years. In response to hearing from community members on a bond-funded local share project, we asked to hear more from staff about the local share program, including how park providers are demonstrating alignment with bond criteria. We will also continue to ask Metro to share updates on any impacts from the federal executive orders on the implementation of the Parks and Nature Bond on Metro and local park providers and grant recipients. At this point in the life of the bond measure, 2 programs Metro manages, the Protect and Restore Land and Take Care of Metro Parks programs, are operating according to expectations. The pace of award and spend of the bonds grant programs is still slower than expected, and we may want to spend more time reviewing those programs in the years to come. With that, I'll hand it off to Erin, my co-chair.
Thanks, Carrie. Good morning, everyone. Hope you can hear me okay. I'm Erin Upton, she, her pronouns. Thanks, John, for the introduction, and thanks, Carrie, for getting us started. I've served on the committee since its inception and just want to express my appreciation for the full committee. The Metro staff has been great, and my co-chair, Carrie Waters. So I'll continue us on with our update with the bond, specifically getting into a bit more about the bond criteria. So as you know, this bond measure is pretty complicated. It has 6 different program areas and already referenced for the 3 criteria. So our committee finds that the bond investments and activities to date are meeting expectations for addressing bond criteria. Metro-led community engagement activities underway provide examples of how Metro is continuing to utilize and improve meaningful engagement strategies to bring community into program and project decision-making. So the engagement activities completed from July 2024 to June 2025 for the Community Choice Grants pilot round, the Lone Fir Memorial, and the Blue Lake Park renovation project, as well as the Willamette Cove Master Plan project, engaged over 1,500 people using multiple methods, including online surveys, in-person events, site visits, and focus workshops and design charrettes. So this builds on the over 3,000 people engaged from 2023 through the summer of 2024, and a total of over 10,000 individuals engaged since 2020. Metro is making bond investments to increase accessibility to parks, trails, and natural areas in multiple ways through investments in culturally relevant projects that create the conditions to support programming and park spaces meant to give Indigenous, Black, and other people of color meaningful experiences in nature. Investments at Metro develop sites to increase access opportunities and address infrastructure and maintenance. So, in addition, the bond's local share and grant programs provide meaningful support for local park providers, agencies, and community organizations in acquiring land, and then developing and restoring natural areas, as well as improving park deficient neighborhoods and investing in our trail system in a way that provides increased opportunities for residents to connect with nature. Nevertheless, the committee is grappling with the challenges of telling a cohesive story of bond impact and investments with 6 different program areas, the multiple bond criteria, and going beyond quantitative measures to understand overarching trends, lessons learned, and impacts. So we're appreciating how Metro is highlighting stories and case studies to demonstrate the ripple out impacts of each bond investment into the community, such as highlighting how each land acquisition has impacts that ripple beyond the acreage protected, and each section of regional trail added to public ownership contributes to a larger connectivity across the system. We're pleased to see that Metro is utilizing and refining a performance measurement system to understand progress made to specific goals and long-term outcomes. It's related to the bond criteria. We believe that the developing performance measurement system with an articulation of 4 impact areas, healthy habitat, proximity and experience, community empowerment, and economic vitality, continues to offer a way to make meaning out of specific outputs included in the reporting to the broader access outcomes. So we're pleased to hear that the staff will continue to refine its reporting to the committee on bond criteria in a way that can easily align with those 4 impact areas in the framework in order to try to measure progress towards these goals that connect both inputs and outputs to our longer term outcome goals. So finally, with this perspective, we're intentionally including in our report this year a lens of adaptive management, highlighting where Metro has applied lessons learned in the early bond years to address unexpected challenges or respond to new conditions. It's our hope that by including examples of adaptive management paired with stories of bond impact highlighted in our report and the staff reporting, that we can help illustrate key themes about bond implementation over the last 5 years in a way that allows the committee, the council, and Metro to parse lessons learned for future measures and understand what it takes to implement a bond of this complexity and breadth. So we feel these examples show that Metro has successfully adapted its bond implementation activities over the last 5 years to meet a changing landscape of need and maximize investments over what is expected to be a 12-year bond program. Nevertheless, the committee wants to highlight the following key themes moving forward related to storytelling and evaluating performance. So Metro can continue to do a better job telling the story of the overall outcomes now that there's a bigger set of investments and activities complete. We will continue to discuss with staff additional ways to present information that might be more approachable or valuable. One way we've discussed as a committee is building on initial mapping of parks, trails, and natural areas to further analyze bond investments as connected systems. We continue to ask for additional connections to be made between the engagement activities that we hear about and bond projects, as well as how the lessons learned from engagement are being utilized. We also value the opportunity to learn about the successes and challenges local share partners are having with community engagement while using bond funding. And so hope to continue to learn about this with local share going forward. The local share program is one of the ways that the bond measure can be felt in every community in the region. And so we believe it's important for the committee to keep hearing about the progress of the local share project approval and how community engagement is informing those projects as well. So that wraps up my portion, and I will hand it back to John.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Aaron. Councilors, any immediate questions from your Bond Oversight Committee co-chairs before I go into the rest of our annual report? Seeing none, thank you again. I believe Aaron will have to drop off, but Carrie is able to hang out for a bit. So thanks. We can go to the next slide, please. So jumping into the larger report for not just the bond work, but everything, this will highlight work done in the last fiscal year, funded through the bond, the levy, and Metro's general funds. As we walk through this, I want to remind that this is investments only July 2024 through June of 25. As we do each year, we report a lot of numbers about how many acres are protected and restored and how much was invested across the region, how many local priority projects were awarded. And we know that is more to it with some of the stories that are need to be told as well. And so we'll try to provide some context as well about trends and impact. A few highlights you'll see is that, again, the bond investments continue to span the entire region, making an impact all over, as well as levy investments. Metro has invested this past year more than $25 million in grants and local share, and also had one of its largest land purchases in a decade, with the team closing on the 553 acres that now make up Eagle Creek Natural Area along the Clackamas River. We can go to the next slide, please. So one of the big parts of the levy is our habitat restoration and maintenance. Nearly half the levy funding goes towards supporting this work. That's the heart of our program. Restoration and maintenance work includes controlling invasive weeds, planting native trees and shrubs, and removing unnecessary or harmful culverts and roads, and much more. This past year, our team worked on 124 habitat and water improvement projects that impacted 8,500 acres of land. This work significantly improves the ecosystems of our parks and natural areas, creating that healthy habitat for native plants and animals. Restoration dollars are focused on the high priority habitat and projects that are informed by science and engagement with stakeholders and community members. Our investments in partnership, both staff and time, help to anchor and leverage the work of many partners. It's not just Metro doing this work. We have folks like Clackamas River Invasive Species Partnership, the Clackamas Rivers Partnership, Clean Water Services, Sandy River Basin Partners, and the Willamette Valley Native Plant Partnership, and others. Next slide, please. I want to talk about and highlight a story. Over the past year, one of our most visible restoration projects has been underway in Wilsonville. Coffee Lake Creek Natural Area, which you can see on the left, has been almost completely filled with reed canary grass, and which is an aggressive invasive species that creates monocultures in former farmland, which this area was before we purchased it. Before that, it was wetland habitat, which we'll be looking to restore. Generally, our work is done down in ravines or in forests where folks usually don't get to see from the community. And Coffee Lake Creek Natural Area sits right next to the Villebois neighborhood. It has a trail and pocket park along the side. So it's a great opportunity for folks to see what it looks like to do these large restoration projects. The picture on the right is from Heritage Pine Natural Area, which is what the Coffee Lake Creek area will look more like. And so soon community members will have a wetland and native grasses and shrubs and with all sorts of birds and small mammals and possibly beaver lodges as as the animals come back and use this more healthy ecosystem. Next slide, please. Moving on to protecting land, you heard from Aaron and Carrie about the investments. This past year, we had 30 land transactions that acquired 727 acres of land from willing sellers, including a big purchase in the Eagle Creek Natural Area. A lot of the low-hanging fruit is gone from the previous 2 bonds that have been invested over the past 2 decades. So transactions are taking more time, takes a lot of time to build relationships. But year over year, we're seeing that the investments in relationships are working through this willing seller program. And what your predecessors on the Metro Council envisioned back in the 90s and with your leadership, we're seeing it continue to come to fruition today. And we've, through this life of this bond, have acquired over 1,500 acres, as mentioned before. Next slide, please. So I mentioned Eagle Creek Natural Area. This is just a picture of the river from the site. It was, again, one of our largest single purchases made since Chehalem Ridge out in Washington County almost 15 years ago. So it joins a string of other natural areas and county and state parks that ensure that the Clackamas River continues to remain strong and healthy for plants and animals and people to enjoy. Next slide, please. Moving on to some of our park investments, we know that people across the region love parks and natural areas, and one of the big things they want to make sure is that we take care of what we have. So a lot of the investment meet or exceed standards for accessibility. This past spring, our staff moved into the new Blue Lake office, which you can see in the workshop nearby that allows us to be the home base for the majority of our operations for across the region. So we are continuing to work on another project, which is more of the renovations out of Blue Lake, and we look forward to bringing more of those stories and information and outreach to you all soon. Next slide, please. One thing we wanted to highlight in some of our park improvements was at Lone Fir Cemetery, specifically in the historic Chinese section. This is from an event where we were inviting members to weigh in on the art that would accompany the architecture and landscaping of that memorial. We want to highlight that this engagement work has really led to some major changes in how we approach the memorial's art. I'm proud to say that our engagement team and park planners are working hand in hand to make sure that community members have a meaningful impact and voice in our projects. It's a requirement of the bond, but it's also deeply held value by our department and agency. So we also have large engagement processes going for Lone Fir, Blue Lake, and Willamette Cove. And each of these helps to build trust in the community it's really important for us to make sure that these voices are heard and reflected in the work. What's also important is to help be clear in what we can or can't do and sort of how our role in the region fits and how those park improvements can show up and serve communities for decades to come. Next slide, please. So not only do we purchase, restore, and develop land in parks, we also activate it, recognizing that people experience community and connect with nature in different ways. Our education and stewardship team helps to provide hands-on experiences that allow people to learn about nature and the natural world while fostering the next generation of leaders. We do this through leading our programs and contracting out with others to activate the different sites and areas. We work with program communities to understand what resources can best help to support them, to connect to nature, and look at lots of different partners across the region. Also looking at tailoring programs to support the needs of communities of color and folks who've not been equitably served by Metro in the past. The Community Education Stewardship Team continues to bring more and more adults and youth to our parks and very often our cemeteries. You can see some of the numbers of our participants this past year. Go to the next slide, please. We also, speaking of the cemeteries, we manage 14 historic cemeteries, which provide important service for families throughout the greater Portland. The cemetery is supported from money from Metro's general fund and fees for service. They are managed as active facilities. They also serve as places to learn about the area's history and reflect and enjoy nature. To tie back into the previous slide, our community education and stewardship team also holds grave tending events at our cemeteries throughout the year, which are very popular as these sites matter a lot to community members. Next slide. So not only do we make investments in our own sites, but we continue to make investments in local projects across the region. In the past fiscal year, we awarded more than $25 million for projects headed by cities, counties, and park districts. We have the Nature Neighborhoods grant programs on the capital and levy side, as well as local share to jurisdictions to make sure that the investments in nature are distributed throughout the region and meet the diverse needs of neighborhoods and communities. The bond is also funding a community-led projects where we've got some voting going currently for the community choice grants out in the Clackamas County area. The team is busy getting some of those projects out. I believe they've narrowed the 83 projects down to the top 50, which will be sharing out shortly. On the slide here is one of the largest recent investments that you all have made as a council, which was the $10 million award to the Kellogg Creek project in Milwaukee. It was part of the Large Scale Community Visions program, and we're excited to have 3 more rounds of grant funding coming out just next month. Go to the next slide, please. So looking across the region, you can see that there's been investments made through the capital grants and community choice grants. The blue dots are from or blue pins are from the 2006 bond. The yellow are from the 2019. And red is from the community choice grants, with the green circles reflecting just this past fiscal year. So a large distribution across the region and over time that we're really proud of in being able to make those investments. Next slide, please. And then moving on to local share, these are specifically for the local jurisdictions. Again, we have the small blue dots for 06. We have pink dots now for 95 as well. Yellow for this current 2019 bond, and green for what was in this past fiscal year. So over the life of the bond, $37 million to 12 park providers for 22 projects. We continue to have ongoing conversations with folks about getting their full investments through the bond. So lots of great projects happening all across the region. Next slide, please. Parks and Nature has a racial equity, diversity, inclusion action plan that we adopted in 2018, which brings together the work of the agency's strategic plan to advance racial equity and also working to protect clean air and water and connect people to nature. We've recently updated our action plan that builds on the past 7 years of work and look forward to continuing those efforts and investments to help hold up historically marginalized communities. Some of the work that we've looked at focusing on is on economic equity and really looking at how we can support minority-owned, women-owned, and emerging small businesses with spending money with contractors. You heard Carrie talk about the co-bid utilization, and we set a floor of 20% for the life of the bond. We exceeded that goal again this past fiscal year at 26%. And Carrie mentioned also that the Blue Lake Park Office was the first to use the Construction Careers Pathways program, which is a really great investment. Go to the next slide, please. Wouldn't be a presentation without a wall of numbers to show to you all. I won't go into all of this because you have these in your packets, but this is just recognizing where across the various programs that we have in the department to protect and restore land, provide access to nature, do park improvements, manage cemeteries, provide nature education stewardship events, provide community investments to fund local partners, and then operate everything that we have from the administrative side comes from 3 major buckets of general fund, the Parks and Nature 2022 levy, and the bond. So we continue to be transparent about how our spending is and our work to invest the dollars that the public trusts us with. Next slide. In closing, just want to thank you all for the engagement, the direction, and support. Many of you have been out on visits this past fall to see some of our parks and natural areas and see some of the challenges that we've navigated with some of the operation budget reductions. Also get a chance to see the unique role that Metro plays in the region of being able to have large nature, close to home, preserve these special places, but also provide access through a balance of human-centered and ecological benefits, and all the places that are really important to the region. We look forward to continuing more of these conversations with you too as we look towards our roadmap project, which is a collection of projects looking at how we can be clear on our services we provide, the asset inventory, how we manage, how we are able to implement our tribal government engagement consultation efforts and our ADA accessibility, all leading towards updating our current system plan to help set that vision for the future in conjunction with the Future Visions work that you all are also supporting, and then bringing to you also different funding options to think about how to continue to sustainably fund this great work now and for the future. And with that, I think I've gone over my time, and I will stop here and take any questions, and just want to thanks again to all of the amazing staff that do this work and to all of our partners and community members that support. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Director Blasher, and thank you, Carrie and Erin. I know she's gone, but for your work on the Bond Oversight Committee and making sure that these investments spread across the region and that our residents get to enjoy the most vital asset that we have here in the region. So thank you. Councilors, we only have a couple of minutes because we have another big topic to cover. If you would, keep your remarks brief, and if you have longer questions, direct them to Director Blasher at a later time. Councilor Lewis.
Sure, just to stay super brief, I do appreciate the work not only of the parks and the parks team, but especially of oversight. I think your body has done a really nice job of balancing your responsibilities covering two voter-approved measures, both a bond and a levy. And each has its kind of purpose and strength, and how you look at the two of them together, I think is something we can all learn from. Really want to lift up the investments that are made across the region. I think that you have weathered some particularly challenging budget environment in a very dignified way. Want to really offer praise and flowers for the team that do above and beyond every day, so that visitors can not only enjoy nature, but also take care of themselves in clean restrooms and park in safe facilities and access trails that are not dangerous to them and their families. I have enjoyed time out in nature thanks to Metro in all three counties, and we provide excellent service. I do have larger concerns about continued funding. I do have larger concerns about kind of how we continue to work with community on some of the projects that they care about that maybe Metro doesn't necessarily think are big lifts for planning and kind of future purpose, but I'll take those at a separate venue. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'll go ahead.
Oh, just appreciations. Thank you for all your service, especially to our oversight committee. And yeah, these are real regional treasures. So thanks to all the team for what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Director Blasher. Thank you again, Carrie. Really appreciate y'all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the time and support.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, moving us to our next resolution, moving us into resolutions. Moving on to resolution number 25-5538 for the purpose of terminating the intergovernmental agreement between Metro and the City of Portland, under which Metro manages the Portland's 5 centers for the arts. Our next item, I just said the whole thing anyway. Our General Manager of Visitor Venues, Craig Stroud, is here to present the resolution. But before that, City of Portland Councilor Jamie Dunphy has joined us to share a few words. Councilor.
Good morning. Good morning, councilors. For the record, my name is Jamie Dunphy. I have the honor of serving as a Portland City Councilor representing Portland's East Side. I'm here this morning on behalf of the City of Portland in support of the resolution for the next important steps in the future of the P5 performing arts venues and our region's vibrant arts industry and the vital role that that industry will play in Portland's next great chapter. Our predecessors created a system to manage these performance venues where the city, county, and Metro all took a role in funding operations with a collection of commissions, boards, and semi-independent entities at the helm. To quote Oscar Martinez from The Office, "Go ahead and name a country without two presidents, a ship that sets sail without two captains. Where would Catholicism be without the popes?" We were all able to pool resources, and we were all able to avoid taking responsibility for our aging infrastructure and creaky processes. After repeated financial crises, an incisive auditor's report, and a recent frank recommendation from our community's arts leaders, it's time to shake hands, end this system, and move forward with Portland in the lead. And Portland is ready to lead. In the last 5 years, our city has stood up a strong and growing Office of Arts and Culture. We have a new form of government that allows for the executive branch to plan for the long term in a way that it never could before. And we have a mayor who understands that the creative economy will be at the heart of the coming downtown renaissance. We have a city council full of practitioners and lovers of music and the arts. We can and will steward these resources. There's a long way to go from here to there, and we have a lot of work to do. The Performing Arts Venue Work Group identified operational and strategic issues with P5 that go well beyond capital management. The community asked that the venues return to the city so that one entity, the City of Portland, could lead the venues into the future, taking all the responsibility, the credit, and the blame. As our staffs negotiate a collaborative dissolution of this consolidated agreement, we should bear that community direction in mind. This is an administrative transaction, not a policy decision point. While it may be tempting to try to control the dissolution process to support Metro's institutional perspectives on the venues, it would be a disservice to both the city and to the broader arts stakeholder community. I urge you as our partners to not place obstacles or restrictions on this process at this stage, and allow for a full process to take place so that we can find an operational model that meets the moment and the needs for the decades to come. 18 months from now, audiences attending shows at the P5 venues should find themselves attending great shows, as they have been. But 5 years from now, audiences will be telling us how much they enjoy being in our spaces and how positively they feel about their interactions with security, staff, and concessions. Artists will be telling us how they love running shows at our venues and how much they prefer our fair, straightforward process to those at venues they once fled P5 for. Major promoters will celebrate their strong partnerships with an operator that is responsive, flexible, and can tell them how much things will cost. And technicians will be pleased to come to work at these theaters that are in good repair and host enough programming to support a numerous and highly skilled union workforce. There are bright days ahead for P5 and the Downtown Arts Corps. I support this resolution, and I urge you to vote yes. And thank you for letting me be here this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dunphy.
Craig. Yes, thank you for your words, Councilor Duffy. Good morning, Metro Council, Vice President Simpson, councilors. My name is Craig Stroud, and I serve as Metro's General Manager of Visitor Venues. Today, we have an important resolution before you seeking direction on Portland 5's intergovernmental agreement with the City of Portland. Executive Director Rachel Lembo, sitting to my right, will present the resolution, and we're both available to answer questions you may have. Before turning it over to Rachel, I want to express my gratitude for her outstanding work over the past year in interim roles at Portland 5 and congratulate her on her promotion to Executive Director. I'm confident we'll benefit from her strong leadership, communication skills, and strategic acumen as we work through the processes in the future. Rachel?
Thank you, Craig. Good morning, Deputy Council President Simpson, members of the Metro Council. My name is Rachel Lembo. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Executive Director of Portland 5 Centers for the Arts. Next slide, please. I want to start with a brief background of our activities concerning the P5 IGA over the past year. In October 2024, a performing arts venue work group was convened by Metro and the City of Portland to evaluate management of the Portland 5 venues. The work group issued recommendations in June 2025 that included dissolution of the IGA between Metro and the City of Portland for management of the city-owned venues, and for the city to work with stakeholders to continue assessing options to identify a new long-term operating model. At the July 15th, 2025 Council work session, staff provided an update on the venue work group recommendations and Council policy options. Council directed staff to coordinate with the City of Portland on a mutually agreeable plan and date to transition operations back to the city, and to consider unilateral termination if coordination with the city does not progress timely. Several councilors also stated their expectations that Metro continue to explore and lead in the arts and culture space for support to regional arts. Next slide, please. Currently, we are in active negotiations with the City of Portland on a termination agreement to end the P5 IGA and outline the terms and timeline for transferring Portland 5 operations. As you know, if Metro were to terminate unilaterally, the Portland 5 IGA states that the termination will be effective 18 months after the notice date. Next slide, please. We're here today for your direction on whether and how to proceed with termination of the Portland 5 IGA through either mutual agreement or unilateral termination. Next slide. There are multiple options for how to proceed, including delegate authority to the Metro Chief Operating Officer to execute a mutually agreed upon termination agreement with the City of Portland, with or without a deadline for Metro and the city to finalize that agreement. Unilaterally terminate the agreement, open negotiations on a new or amended agreement with the city, conduct further analysis, or take no action at this time. Next slide. Staff recommend that Council direct and delegate authority to the Metro Chief Operating Officer to execute the mutually agreed upon termination agreement with the City of Portland, including the terms and timeline for transferring Portland 5 operations, with a deadline of December 30th, 2025. If the termination agreement is not executed by that date, staff recommend Council direct Metro's notice to the City of Portland of unilateral termination of the Portland 5 IGA on December 31st, 2025, with termination effective on June 30th, 2027. Next slide. And we are now available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, councilors. Councilor Lewis. Then Councilor, I got you.
Sure, I have a series of questions. I hope you'll indulge me.
Yes, ma'am.
My first question, and I don't know if you two can answer it. Where's the magic money tree? Where is the City of Portland going to find the money that they are going to need to manage the facility?
As you know, Councilor Lewis, we worked very hard in our budget for this current year to balance our operating budget. It was not an easy process, similar to what Director Blasher experienced with Parks and Nature. We reduced 17% of our full-time staff for 12 positions. However, with that, we do have a balanced operating budget, meaning on the operations side, our revenue does cover our expense. The challenge really is capital, where we do not raise enough funds through operations to fund capital, and at this point, we have a low fund balance. It's not able to fund the major needs of these aging buildings. That is a challenge that the City of Portland experiences with multiple assets. My understanding is that they are doing a major infrastructure plan. They are well aware that the P5 buildings are need to be part of their plan because they are city-owned assets. I do not have an answer of where the magic money tree is, but I do feel like the fact that we are now being included in that plan and the city is really considering the needs of these buildings is a positive step forward.
Follow up. I believe that we have made some significant investments out of operating that most normal people and institutions would consider capital. We replaced a roof that I think was about $7 million. We replaced an HVAC, and we went through a permitting process that if the city themselves had been performing that would have cost at least $100,000 less for permits on a building they own. And then we bought an acoustic shell, and that's a pretty cool thing, but I think it cost $9 million. Does all that sound right?
All of that is correct. I could list even more projects. We've done all 3 roofs and on all 3 buildings. What I will say is that in the past, specifically before the pandemic, we had positive operations to the extent that we were able to put some of that money towards capital projects. We generally had years where we had $1 to $3 million in positive operations. That is not the normal way that performing arts centers fund capital projects. Essentially, that meant that we were funding it on the back of operations, so on the back of the clients that were performing in our buildings. However, that was the way that we were able to continue with those projects pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic, our operations have not generated that sort of net positive, and so at this point, we are extremely challenged and low on funds to further capital projects.
Thank you for laying that out explicitly. I think it's really important to highlight that it is not good practice to have such significant capital having to come out of operations, and it's not sustainable. Irregardless of what kind of performance is going to happen in the facility, whether it's a big show or a one-person show, whether it requires labor to do a lot of set or whether it's just literally a black box with a microphone. Can you talk a little bit about the kind of rate sheet that we give? I heard the counselor mention that in the future we might have more predictability about costs and rates, and I'd really like to get the record open on how we do our pricing and our rates.
Yes, happy to answer that. All of our rental rates, so the fee just to rent the space, regardless of what you are using the space for, are available on our website, and we set those in advance. We do have a tiered schedule, so we have one rate for commercial, and then we have different levels of discounts, a 20% discount, a 50% discount, and a 70% discount on our rental rates for different types of nonprofits in the area. On top of that, we do pass through labor charges. So as you were speaking to, stagehand costs for setting up the space, front of house, ushers, gate attendants, taking the tickets, security, all of that. And all of those labor rates are also available on our website. And when clients reach out to us who haven't booked with us before and they're interested in finding out what those costs would be, we talk to them about what type of show it is, and we put together an estimate of what the cost would be for their particular show.
Great, thank you. And then finally, in the action that we're taking today, we are essentially moving forward with what's in a legally binding contract, but saying we'd like to have this continue to be a collaborative process, and we would like for the city to demonstrate a readiness instead of us just walking away. Can you describe a little bit more what those readiness elements are?
Yeah, I mean, in the, we have a draft termination agreement now. Like, we're actively in negotiations with the city. It talks about personnel, it talks about the balance sheet items. We have always kept Portland 5 as a sub-fund within Metro, so it's a matter of looking at those balance sheet items, revenues, expenses, and figuring out how all of that would transfer over at a certain date. I believe that those negotiations are progressing well at this point, but there's a lot of work to be done once the agreement is signed, and so we really want to prioritize getting that agreement signed, setting those terms so that we can actually start the real work of a smooth transition back to the city.
Thank you.
Councilor Wong.
Thank you.
I do want to acknowledge that Metro Council President Peterson has joined us. Sorry, go ahead, Councilor Wong.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy President, and thank you to the staff and all our collaborators to get us to this point. I'm glad we have a no sacred cows mentality here, and we can revisit business lines and things like that, as circumstances change. I think that's really healthy and valuable. I think it makes a ton of sense for the city to retake leadership on the P5, as them being the landlords and the intense maintenance and capital needs are going to be coming up. I think having that centralized makes a ton of sense. One concern I have is in terms of transparency and process with the public. I think since our press started to report on it, I've been getting more emails about, what does this mean? Can we slow down the process? And I was also sort of surprised to read that, Councilor Dunphy has quite really leaned in and sent staff to our meetings and watched this process, but many of his colleagues at the City of Portland were surprised and don't know about this. So I think there were some steps missed with engagement with our partners and maybe with the public. And I do support moving this forward, but I'm wondering, what can we do now to make sure that there's a inclusive process and discussion where, if there's members of the public that have concerns about this, that they have a venue to raise those concerns, to make sure we're addressing those over the next 18 months.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Wong. I would say that we through the venue work group, it was a group of almost 20 external stakeholders who met over a 6-month period and talked in depth about operations of P5, capital issues, and really how should we be moving forward at this time. You received a presentation on that in July, as did the City Arts and Economy Committee. I would say going forward, I am happy to speak with anybody who contacts you about where we are and what's happening and hear their concerns and their input. Also, my counterpart at the city, Charity Montez, who's the director of the Office of Arts and Culture, I'm sure would also be happy to hear from anyone with their comments and feedback. I will also say that we've been very engaged with the local nonprofits. So we have a large number of nonprofits who perform regularly, sometimes their entire seasons at our buildings, some might be just one weekend a year. And actually one of the recommendations from the venue work group was that P5 do a better job engaging with those local nonprofits. So we've started to have regular meetings with them. So they are all well aware of this, and they have a venue to speak to me and let me know when they have concerns or questions about this process. And we will be continuing that as we move through this transition.
Thank you. And just a suggestion that perhaps there could be some public listening sessions for general public members. I think, it's so important to engage with the nonprofits that are performing there and relate to the arts. But I think there's just general folks that are like, I go to Broadway shows and things like that, I think we also want to hear from at some point. And, if the staff could maybe prepare like an FAQ on a website somewhere where, we get a lot of the same questions about why is this happening and things like that, and what's going to be a change in user experience, that we have something to point to, that this is a goal, we're going to have a seamless transition where on July 1st of 27, that if you go to a show, like you said, that the public won't feel any difference, but that things are running more efficiently and effectively kind of in the back end. So just taking care of how do we communicate this with the public that care deeply about our venues.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Councilor Wong.
Okay, Councilor Gonzalez.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Deputy President Simpson. Appreciate the time. Rachel, Craig, thank you. As Councilor Wong was talking about June 30th is one operator, and then July 1st would be another. I think I'm really focusing on that user experience and making sure that people in this region continue to enjoy the great arts and culture opportunities and venues and things like that. Can you describe basically the amount of the work or the steps, the criteria for us to feel confident on June 30th when the keys are handed over? What does that look like, and how will you and your team be working to make sure that seamless experience is a reality?
Yes, thank you, Councilor. We're definitely a large operation, and so it will take a lot of intentional effort to make sure that this transition is seamless, but that is our goal, and I do believe it's possible, and it's certainly one of the reasons that we're working on an 18-month timeline. I don't believe that we could do a seamless transition on a shorter timeline. We have approximately 500 staff. That includes a very high number of event-driven variable hour staff who are absolutely essential to keeping our events going and going smooth and everything working well for the patrons and for the artists. So we want to make sure that transition is well planned for and goes smooth. We also have a food and beverage operator. We have contracts with all of the clients who perform. So there are a lot of steps that we will have to move through to make sure that transition is seamless. The first one being the termination agreement with the city. So that we need to do that first, and then we will be planning out all of those steps. We do already have some high-level draft timelines of what the major operational components are that we will need to transition. And again, my counterpart, Charity Montez, the Director of Office of Arts and Culture, she and I meet regularly, and we're already talking about what are the things that we need to be including the city of Portland in on now, which 18 months before this happens, so that they are aware, so that they are giving input, so that they are ready for when this transition happens. I do believe that we have the right team between the staff at Portland 5 and the staff over at the city to make this a smooth transition.
If I could add, there's one other element that I just want to remind you that in the late 80s, the P5 venues came to Metro, and they came as a complete unit. Staffing, the bank account, the equipment, the contracts were assigned. And in essence, we're taking that fully functional operation that we know has strategic opportunities to improve in the future, but we're taking it in its current state and we're moving it back to the city. So the bank account has been segregated all these years, and the money that's remaining will move to the city, the equipment will move to the city, the contracts will be assigned. There's a lot of details to attend to. I don't want to downplay that, but I want to provide you confidence that it's not as though the city will have to stand up all of those functions on the 1st of July of 2027. They will receive a fully functional business unit that has opportunity to be improved in the future.
Councilor Nolan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm interested, Rachel or Craig, in for a second of how this move, when it's completed, will affect the ability of the region as a whole to think regionally about arts and culture.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Nolan. I think Metro is always uniquely situated to think about regional issues, and operation of these venues doesn't change that, right? So Metro still has opportunities through work that you're already doing, through the community placemaking program that Planning Development Research runs, through the Glean Art Program, through WPES, and maybe even most importantly, through the future vision work that you're starting now. Where do you want to see regional arts and culture in the next 40 or 50 years? I think there's a lot of opportunity for Metro to develop a program that really reflects the regionality that we have and touches arts and culture across all of our region. And we do not need to be operating a venue in downtown Portland in order to be engaged in that way. So I think the opportunity for Metro is still there. And the venues downtown are, whether or not Metro is managing them, they are still amazing assets that are cherished by people of this region, whether they live in the city of Portland or they live in Wilsonville or if they live in Vancouver, Washington, even outside of our region. People travel from all over to come to these theaters. And so I would hope that they would be considered in that regional plan, but I don't think that we need to be operating these venues in order to develop that regional plan.
Thank you, Rachel. A quick comment, follow up on that, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I understand the logic and the financial concerns that lead us to this point, but I can't shake this feeling that this is Metro stepping back from regional leadership on arts and culture. And I don't know what it would take to convince me otherwise.
Councilor.
I see President Peterson in the queue.
Oh, you're next, though.
Okay, thank you. When you were talking about the transition, that is a lot of work, the assigning of contracts and transferring of staff and all that. I'm wondering, what do we think that transition costs will be in financially, and how is that being apportioned? Is it budgeted for now, and we're using like reserves, and then everything, I guess who's bearing the cost of transition?
Great question, Councilor Wong. To date, we have been managing this with current staff in current capacity. We haven't engaged any outside consultants, or we really had any costs additional to our operations to this point. We have discussed whether that will be necessary once we get into that actual transition planning. we may need additional capacity, whether that's an additional staff person or contracted services. We don't yet have that in our budget, but it is something that we are considering in next year's budget. And we'll be sharing more about that with you when we come back with our budgets in 2026.
So I would anticipate like higher legal costs to assign contracts, deeper costs in labor negotiations, and so I guess I'm wondering like what that scale would be. We all know next year is going to be a tough budget year, and like, are there opportunities to split costs with the city?
I mean, the city will be doing the same thing on their end, right? Like talking about what additional capacity they need for their own planning of receiving this operation. So I don't think that they are, I think costs will be incurred by both parties. I guess I would also add that like Craig said, transfer of operations is something that does happen between governments, and I at least on the Metro side, I feel like we are very well engaged cross-departmentally with finance, with HR, with the Office of Metro Attorney. I think once we have the termination agreement signed, we will have a better sense of what that additional capacity need is. That at this point, I'm not expecting it to be a very large, like a significant cost.
Great. And just a technical legal question. Once notice is provided, that 18 months, are there clauses where you can walk that back if more time is needed, or is it just 18 months is 18 months?
I think, of course, like if this notice would be given at council's direction, if you choose to pass this resolution today, and council could always choose to change that direction. I think we certainly want to remember that once we start down this path, the further down we get, the harder it's going to be to backtrack. So I wouldn't recommend that we get far into that 18 months and change our minds, but certainly if something changed in the next few months, I think, yes, we could make a new plan.
One thing I could add there, the conversations to date with the city have been very collaborative, and the focus has been on seamless transition where there's no visible public interruption of service or change of service to the negative. All parties are focused on a transfer with excellent outcomes for the public that we serve.
Excellent. Thank you.
President Peterson?
Thanks. I just want to say thank you so much to the staff to getting us to this point. This has been a difficult road for Metro for at least the last decade to be able to manage and operate these facilities that are cherished by the region when the owner had not been paying as much attention to the issue as I think we would have liked. And so I think we're at a really great point where the owner, the city of Portland, is now re-engaged, understands the complexity of the issues that we've been dealing with, and wants to dig in and make this system work better. And it is only up to them to be able to do that. So I think this is the right time. It's the right decision. And I really appreciate the seamless transition and volunteer to help out on a couple nights on the week of transition to make sure that we are there to support both the city of Portland and our own staff in that transition. So thank you both, Craig and Rachel, for all of the work to getting us to this point. Thanks.
And I have one last question. It's going to be twofold, and Councilor, if you could come back to give your opinion as well. So we had the very intentional work group, and I love the facilitation of that. I do think that there is broader engagement, as my fellow councilor said, that could have occurred, but we got deep engagement. And I think that really matters on something so technical and complicated. From that work group, the one person / group that didn't really say, heck yeah, thumbs up, was organized labor and our representative from IATSE. So I'm wondering if this side could speak a little bit to the state protections that are in place for contracts in transitions such as this. And then I look to you, Councilor, if you could speak on behalf of the city of Portland, if possible, about your commitment to organized labor in these facilities.
Thank you, Councilor Lewis. As you know, there is a state statute that governs the transition of operations from one government to another, and it does have staff protections in there. So that is something that we are looking at and discussing as we negotiate this termination agreement.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I can confirm the city of Portland is committed to protecting these union jobs and seeing the seamless transfer that recognizes the dignity and the professionalism necessary for both IATSE and AFM 99 workers. I myself am AFM's American Federation of Musicians. I am an AFM 99 member. The mayor Wilson is currently setting up a work group to recommend specifically to him with stakeholders. Currently, an AFM member is a member of that, and I am speaking to the mayor after this meeting to ensure that an IATSE member is also on that work.
I think it's really important IATSE's there. With due respect, it's IATSE that holds the government contract.
Absolutely.
You perform in the space, you definitely,
Sure.
as musicians, understand and live in those spaces.
Yeah.
But it's the financial relationship between us and Metro that is going to become between us or those people in the city of Portland. And I've been an employee of City of Portland. I now work here. I represent here. They're different environments.
Yes.
And that transition, even if y'all are acting with the best of intentions, and I'm hearing little matters that maybe not everybody's on the same page. So thank you for affirming that. Even if it is a quote unquote seamless transfer, it will not be. There will be benefits that are lost. There will be benefits that are changed, and that is extremely disruptive. So let's be planful and please include IATSE.
Absolutely. I will just note that I am a member of the city's Arts and Economy Committee and the Labor and Workforce Committee. These conversations have been front and center with regard to the future of the Keller Auditorium and the conversation between renovating the Keller or building a new performing venue at PSU. And those jobs have been front and center for most of those conversations. That really does seem to be the key point right now, is how do we preserve those union jobs, knowing that in other cities, we know that those jobs can tend to be transitory to some. If there's not work to be had here, people will move to find where work is up in Seattle or down in San Francisco or Boise even. We want to make sure those jobs stay here, that those benefits here, that the good paying professional stagehands and workers all throughout the system are respected and recognized. And that is a guarantee, that is a promise from me that that will be front and center in those conversations.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yes.
Thank you very much. This is a great conversation. I wanted to just return, Councilor Wong, to a couple of your comments and maybe get a little bit of clarification from all of Council. You talked about engagement, and I think one of the things we heard from Director Lembo was that we've obviously engaged with the city very deeply, and we've engaged with some of our key stakeholders. I heard you talk about maybe a broader public engagement, and I maybe would love to hear a little bit more from Council whether that's direction from Council, because I don't believe we have anticipated doing any sort of a broad public engagement around this transfer besides the key stakeholders. And correct me if I'm wrong about that.
Well, I can just speak for myself, just getting feedback from my constituents that there are some questions and that people felt surprised. And I don't know the exact method that we want to do that, but I think a community listening session or online survey or some combination of those types of activities would be helpful, because I think we did engage deeply with specific stakeholders. But I do think that there is, if you weren't part of a process, you don't understand all the considerations that went into it. So I would feel more comfortable if the city and Metro teamed up and heard from a broader community about what is most important in thinking about in this transition from a public perspective. But that's just me.
President Peterson.
I guess I would just like to second that in terms of a minimum of at least one, virtual listening session between the city of Portland and Metro to present kind of the plans for the transition and get feedback on that, missing elements, ideas, questions. I think that would be very helpful to deal with the questions that are coming up, because once folks that I've been reacting with via email that heard about this through articles, once they get the information, they feel like their concerns are being addressed already. But there's no harm in having an online virtual quick kind of educational forum and then take questions and answers. I think that would be a minimum of what would be helpful.
Councilor Nolan?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I would be okay with having a public forum that explains the process we're going through with the city of Portland to affect this change. I'm inclined to think of it, though, as it was described earlier. I think it might have been Director Lembo said that it's an administrative function. It's not a change in policy. It's not a change in practices. Letting people know what we're doing is always welcome. But I think the two groups, Metro and the city, have done a lot of engagement, as I understand it, with the people most engaged with the venues itself. And if we're not changing policies or practices, those are the people we needed to hear from. And I think they've been listened to. I wouldn't suggest I wouldn't suggest nor support, given the timeline we've got, that we open up a big process of public engagement and public input, because I think that would push our transition date off at least a year.
Thank you, Councilor Nolan. And Deputy COO Scott, I would fall a little bit more on the side of, if we're going to have open ears, it's a little too late for Metro to have a lot of open ears, and we need to encourage the city to have open ears. But I think we've done listening, and we're making a decision. So I think there's some texture to how the transition happens, but with this notice, I think it's time for City of Portland to be the listener. And I think more broadly, some of the context that is necessary is the lack of funding for the arts broadly in Oregon. It's abysmal when you compare Oregon funding of the arts to other states. And then also from the city, and the uncertainty around arts funding has, come through the pandemic. It's come through a reset of RAC, and more ways of structuring doesn't produce any more dollars, doesn't produce any more certainty, doesn't produce any more ability for the nonprofits who perform in these venues to know that they have a next season. So we need to be really clear when we're solving for these venues. A lot of what we're hearing is a broader lack of funding for these institutions, and that is something that Metro does need to have open ears for. And as Councilor Nolan said earlier, arts and culture is a regional challenge. That's something we can lean into while simultaneously moving away from the operations side of these 5 unique venues.
What I'm hearing is potential support for a listening session or some education about what's happening without bogging the process down, and also beginning to shift some of that over to the city as well, as they are a potential receiver. We'll take that under consideration as part of the plan, report back to you all on what some of those next steps might be. Thanks, that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I don't see any more hands. Everything that's been said, I think, has been really helpful, but nothing else to say. So with that, I would call for a motion on Resolution 255538.
So moved. Is this for negotiations December 31st and then unilateral? Is that how that's bundled?
It's one resolution. Can you give me the dates? Did you get the dates right?
Or it's one resolution with 2 options for the COO, is that correct?
Go ahead, Rachel.
Correct. So the resolution authorizes the Metro COO to sign a termination agreement if that is ready by December 30th. If it is not ready to be signed by December 30th, it directs the COO to issue notice on December 31st, which would make the termination effective on June 30th, 2027.
So moved.
Okay, so moved by Counselor
I
Wong.
second. I second.
Okay. Got a motion from Counselor Wong, second from President Peterson. And can we get any further discussion? Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, Counselor Gonzalez,
Aye.
Counselor Nolan,
Yes.
Counselor Lewis,
Aye.
Counselor Wong,
Aye.
Council President Peterson.
Aye.
Wonderful. Result of the vote is unanimous support for the resolution 5538. Thank you all. Okay, for our next agenda item, we're going to move to Resolution 255533 for the purpose of amending the fiscal year 25-26 budget and appropriations schedule and fiscal year 25-26 through fiscal year 29-30 capital improvement plan to provide for changes in operations. And we are joined by Cinnamon Williams, our budget director, and Amanda Akers, our budget manager, who will review the changes and answer questions.
Yes, thank you, Councilor Lewis. And I am Cinnamon Williams, for the record, the budget director, she, her pronouns, to recognize that we should always do that. Also, Amanda Akers here, so you can introduce yourself.
Amanda Akers, CBO manager, she, her pronouns. Happy to be here.
Great. So we're going to go as fast as we possibly can. We know we're on borrowed time, so if we can get our presentation up. While she's doing that, we are, go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So we have actually, it seems like it's a large budget amendment, but it's actually very tiny. We have $4.8 million of changes that are increased appropriation. 90% of that is technical changes, actually, not really substantive. The difference between substantive and technical, in my definition, is are we increasing Metro's resources and commitments and et cetera to move work forward, or are we actually just moving money around and it doesn't actually change the intent or the resources? So for example, sometimes we have, we're moving money from a fund in a department to another fund in a department. That isn't really that's more of a technical change, or recognizing revenue from another stakeholder or partner, I should say, and we just need to recognize that revenue in order to spend that revenue. And then sometimes we have projects in the prior year that didn't get finished up, and we need to bring that into the new year and pay for and finish those projects up, and we need the authority to spend the money to do so. So with that said, we have budget amendments of $4.8 million, 4.5 FTE, and we have capital CIP changes. This is the second budget amendment for the fiscal year. It is the first scheduled one. CIP changes are always the largest, and that timing is always in November. So we always have large CIP changes because the CIP plan has significantly usually changed in a year. So we're going to move forward. Next slide. To give you an idea, $4.8 million in appropriation change to a $1.8 billion change. It's less than 0.25% of change. And the same thing goes for the FTE. It's less than a 0.5% of change for that. So the next slide. So I'm going to talk about the substantive changes, which is FTE. It is council's, obviously, their approval and adoption that allows us to get permanent FTE. And so this is I'm going to talk about because this is both in FTE and in additional appropriation resources. So DEI is asking for a half program assistant 3. They have half-time, and they are using variable hour labor to kind of augment that work. The leadership has made a change and said we should just have this a full-time position. They don't need an additional appropriation for that. They're going to use their budget of the hours to pay for that appropriation. IT is asking for a system administrator 3 for increased enhanced cybersecurity measures, and while improving IT security design, architecture, and system support for the agency. And that does require additional appropriation. Capital Asset Management is asking for a construction project manager 2. This is limited duration. This has nothing to, this isn't a vacancy. This is because someone is on leave and they just need some additional resources or additional person to finish those projects for the next 18 months. And then FRS is asking for a senior program analyst. This is to develop and update internal policies across finance, IT, and procurement and administration. This position will ensure compliance, clarity, and efficiency across the organization and will will focus on improving internal policies. This is also to address a great comment from Auditor Evans, and so we want to make sure that, and then also just improving our policies altogether to be more proactive rather than reactive, and they will start on IT first. And then lastly, HR has asking for a program analyst for ADA. This is a program analyst to support our complex and significant increase to ADA accommodations. This ad will result in better compliance, reduction to risk, and ensure equitable treatment to employees. So these are the substantive changes to this budget amendment, and I wanted to go through that pretty quickly. So there we go. All right, next slide. We are going to go to changes in the general fund. We have $2 million that's coming out of the council's office. Again, this is not an actual change in intent or amount of resources, but we were moving it out of the general fund into the MERC fund. That requires quite a bit of technical change. So you'll see this in a few different slides. That's what that. The $313K is actually the substantive amount for the FTE changes. And we also need to recognize $250,000 in an increased appropriation for ODOT to give us the funding and change the contract. It was, again, a technical change, not actually additional resources Metro is paying forward. I know I'm talking really fast, I'm sorry. Next thing is our general asset management fund. These are all pretty much capital improvement plan changes. Next slide, please, I'm sorry. So we have some unspent funds that were in the prior year that we planned on spending. We just moved into the new year. That's in our safety, climate, and resilience bucket and our IT bucket. Those are, and moving that forward in EV infrastructure and IT projects. We are transferring 0.5 out of this this fund into the COO's office. We're just changing some admin support. And then a capital, Parks and Nature also has a sub-fund in the General Asset Management Fund. It's received a pretty good grant from the Oregon State Board for $210,000 for the Gleason Boat Ramp. Again, not Metro's resources, we're adding more. So the next slide, please. And these are all capital improvement plan changes. I'm going to kind of run through this. MERC is getting that $2 million for the Expo Sports Infrastructure Project. That'll also show up in your CIP changes, and that's just moving into the MERC fund. We also, the General Asset Management is sending $40,000 over to MERC for EV infrastructure. Next slide, please. Parks and Nature, this is all, or we're in Zoo, sorry. There. That's all right, I can talk from this way. So the Oregon Zoo, they're also, this is all capital improvement plan changes. They are moving from $300,000 from a bucket into an actual project. They do this often when they recognize they have new projects in there. And then the bond is actually, took a look at some of their scope, schedule, budget and has better fine tuning, and they decided that they will have less money spent this fiscal year, and that'll move it. So they're moving $3.3 million back into fund balance reserves. Next slide. There's Parks and Nature. So Parks and Nature is recognizing $1 million for Multnomah County for the Loan for Memorial project that is going into the bond fund. Again, it doesn't increase Metro's spending, but it is recognizing that revenue so we can spend it. And then Parks and Nature has, they had a couple of grants, so Clean Water Services and Rail to Trails. They've got to recognize that revenue in order to spend it. And we're also having some additional EV chargers to get transferred over to the from the General Asset Management Fund. And then next slide, I think it's the last one for me, is again, another capital improvement plan change. The refinement of the CIP, the capital improvement plan for solid waste, and they're just moving $270,000 back into contingency. I might have said that as fast as I possibly can. There is more capital here if you wanted to go over that, but in lieu of trying to get done quickly as possible, we will stop there and see if you have any questions. I know, I talked as fast as a teenager.
Councilors, any questions? Any desire to take a deep dive into the 70 projects on the CIP? Maybe that's just me.
Yes.
Thank you. That was a lot.
I know,
really
sorry.
What, are we just pulling money from reserves to fund additional positions? Is that?
The positions will require additional funds from our contingency. That will require that. The capital projects, that's all, they've already had those reserves, or they've moved from one fiscal year to another fiscal year. They got funding, or they are reallocating from other projects.
And what is the balance of our contingency? at the
Oh,
moment?
I did not bring up, I usually bring that up.
I didn't,
Oh,
let's see if I have
I can
it.
get that back to you. Maybe you
today.
have it in here?
No, I only printed off the.
I'm
summary
sorry, in my
attached.
haste to run up here, I left my appropriations line, but we're gonna use about I can get you that number. Instead of me going off the top of my head, I can send you that number.
Okay. My main question is, I want to know how much contingency there is, because we're spending money now in November.
Yeah.
Needs to last us to the fiscal year, and if that makes sense, because we have enough contingency, that's great.
Yes.
But I just don't understand the scale of contingency versus.
Right. Again, I would say our contingency is always at minimum at 16.5% of our revenues for the general fund. All the FTE changes were in the general fund for central services. So there's a plenty of resources in that contingency to cover this fiscal year's changes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Counselors online, I'm not seeing any hands. Any further discussion? I think the counselor raises a good point, and I think the general fund spend on new staff in relation to the contingency kind of line item and where that budget sits is important. I also think just in general, we just went through an extremely painful period with layoffs.
Yes.
And if I understand correctly, almost all of those layoffs were from funds outside of general fund. So I understand why we have the ability to, hit the gas where we just pump the brakes hard. And that's on paper and it's academic. So I guess I just want to bring to light that tension of having just said bye to a bunch of colleagues and now having 4.5 FTE in front of us.
Thank you, Councilor Lewis. Excellent point. And our
Let's make sure I get to the right line.
Our contingency for the general fund is
I'll be
33.2 million.
after these changes.
After these changes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to our phone a friend in the back. Seeing no more questions or discussion, I will call for a motion on resolution 255533.
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Moved by Council President Peterson, seconded by Councilor Wong. Any additional discussion? Roll call, please.
Okay, Counselor Nolan.
Yes.
Counselor Gonzalez.
I think.
Yes.
There we go.
Counselor Wong.
Aye.
Counselor Lewis.
Aye.
Council President Peterson.
Aye.
Wonderful. Unanimous support for that resolution. Thank you, team. Thank you to all the supporting folks here today to move us through our budget. I know sometimes it feels like it's a lot and you try and talk fast. I think it's actually worth paying attention to. So in the future, feel free to talk at normal rate. And you could have 70 slides, one for each. No, don't do that.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I thought we had more of a heart out, so I was really moving. So
Well, we're holding it together. We still have half a quorum. We got a quorum. Joke. I'll move it over to Deputy COO.
Great, thank you. A few updates for council today. First, I wanted to provide a brief update about the request from Councilor Gonzalez last week for staff to explore providing economic support to people at risk of homelessness from increased immigration enforcement activities. We do know that enforcement is increasing across the region. In last month alone, 560 individuals have been arrested in the Portland area by immigration enforcement. We've heard from a variety of sources that people are afraid to leave their homes, to report to work for fear of raids or arrests. And we have incidents of children staying home from school for fear of ICE raids. And these incidents are increasing week after week. As a result, people across the region are struggling to make ends meet and consistently afford their rent. Staff in our housing department have begun exploring options to put together a proposal for council consideration. They've been in contact with colleagues at the counties, at community-based organizations that serve impacted individuals, school social workers, to learn more about the existing needs and potential funding possibilities. Staff's plan is to come back with a proposal for council consideration after the Thanksgiving holiday. And this proposal, we hope, will be responsive to the acute needs and requests that are in the community right now. And then I also want to recognize that in addition to that, you asked for a framework that would help guide decision-making in how to spend future flexible funds to be responsive to emergent issues as they arise. while considering also our long-term needs to maintain a healthy contingency. And so staff will also be bringing a draft framework in early December as well. I know Val Galstead was here. They had to run to a meeting, so if you have any questions, though, feel free to reach out to Val, our interim Deputy Director of Housing, as we work through this proposal. And then a couple of other announcements just on a lighter note. I want to thank everyone, council and employees who braved the cold with me on Monday night. It wasn't actually that cold. I've been to Zoo Lights when it's a lot colder, but we had employees Zoo Lights at the night, Zoo Lights night at the zoo, and it was really a great chance to see many of our employees and say hi in person. I want to really thank the zoo staff as well for another amazing event. It just really gets better year after year. And there's always something new to enjoy every time I attend. So if you didn't get a chance to go on Monday, employees can still reserve free Zoo Lights tickets for other nights throughout the holidays. And you can find information on how to do that on our MetroNet, on the Employee Resources newsletter, or by emailing zoo employee tix requests at metro-region.org. And then lastly, I want to remind folks that our community campaign is going on right now. There's a clothing and supply donation drive for transition projects that you can drop off donations for. In our MRC kitchens, there's a food drive for Portland Food Project that you can drop off donations in the donation bags that are around MRC. And if you're interested, we also have a few upcoming volunteer opportunities that our employees can attend on paid time with supervisor approval. And more information about these volunteer opportunities and links to sign up are available on MetroNet on our employee news page. And of course, thank you to those who have already taken part in the community campaign by either donating or volunteering.
Thank you, Deputy COO. Colleagues, I think we're losing our time together. So I'm going to skip over council communication if that is okay. And I will adjourn our meeting, and we will meet again December 2nd at 10:30 a.m. Have a great holiday.